The greatest man in history had no servants, yet they called him master, had no degree, yet they called him teacher, had no medicines, yet they called him healer. He had no army, yet kings feared him. He won no military battles, yet he conquered the world. He did not live in a castle, yet they called him Lord. He ruled no nations, yet they called him King. He committed no crime, yet they crucified him. He was buried in a tomb, yet he lives today. His name, Jesus Christ. Welcome to the first video in our series, exploring the book of Genesis, one of the oldest and most influential texts in history. In this journey, we'll begin at the very start, the moment the world was created. The first chapter of the Bible opens with a powerful statement. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In just a few words, the foundation of everything we know is established. But what does this truly mean? What is the purpose of this creation? Before anything else, there was chaos, a dark and formless void. The book of Genesis describes it as darkness over the surface of the deep, a vivid image of complete disorder. And it is over this chaos that God begins to bring order. Then God said, "Let there be light," and light appeared. This is the first act of creation, marking the beginning of a process in which God transforms chaos into something beautiful and habitable. Over 6 days, God creates the world, not in a random or chaotic fashion, but with a clear, careful plan. At each step, he looks upon what he has made and declares it good. On the first day, God creates light, separating it from darkness. On the second day, he forms the sky, establishing a separation between the waters above and the waters below. The third day is dedicated to creating dry land, and with it, all kinds of plants and trees that would bring forth life. On the fourth day, he sets the stars, the sun, and the moon, not just as sources of light, but as markers of time. They are to govern the day and the night, the seasons and the years. In the following days, God creates life. On the fifth day, the waters are filled with marine creatures, and the skies are populated with birds. On the sixth day, he creates land animals. And finally, humankind. The pinnacle of creation comes when God decides to create man and woman in his own image. Humanity is not merely another part of creation, it is special, made to reflect God's image in the world. But what does it mean to be made in God's image? It implies that, just as God is a creator, we too are made to create. We are beings capable of reasoning, forming cultures, creating art, building relationships, and governing the earth with wisdom and justice. Moreover, God gives humanity a purpose to govern and care for creation. Adam and Eve are entrusted with tending and keeping the Garden of Eden, showing that work is part of God's divine plan for humanity. Creation is not merely a physical place, it's a space of harmony where everything has its place and purpose, reflecting the order and beauty of the Creator. On the seventh day, God rests. But this rest does not mean inactivity. God's rest is a sign that creation is complete, it is good, and he is satisfied with what he has made. This divine rest is also an invitation to us. Just as God rested, we too are called to find rest in him, within the rhythm of work and life that he has set for us. So, what can we learn from this first story of creation? It shows us that the world has a creator, that everything has a purpose, and that we, as humans, have a special role in this story. We are made to reflect God's image, care for creation, and find our rest in him. Creation is more than just an ancient account. It is an invitation to understand our place in the universe and our relationship with the Creator. And as we continue this series, we'll see how this perfect creation began to face challenges and how God has been working ever since to restore it. He placed humanity at the center of it all. We turn our attention to the first human beings, Adam and Eve, and their unique role in this story. Adam and Eve were not only the first humans, but they also represent humanity as a whole, our relationship with God, with each other, and with the world around us. Genesis tells us that God formed Adam from the dust of the earth. But unlike the rest of creation, Adam was given something special, the breath of life. He was created in the image of God, with a unique ability to think, reason, and act. Being made in God's image means Adam wasn't just another creature. He was given the responsibility to care for the world, to cultivate the land, and to name the animals. This shows that humanity's role is not just passive, we are partners with God in shaping creation. Adam was placed in a garden, the Garden of Eden, a paradise where he could live, work, and walk with God. It was a place of peace and harmony, where all of creation flourished together. But even in this perfect place, something was missing. God declared, "It is not good for man to be alone." And so God created a companion for Adam, a woman, Eve. Eve was created from Adam's side, symbolizing that she was to be his equal partner. Together, Adam and Eve were to reflect the image of God, not just individually, but in their relationship with each other. In this partnership, Adam and Eve were to live in unity with each other, with God, and with the world around them. They were given the freedom to enjoy the garden and everything in it. But with that freedom came one restriction. In the middle of the garden stood two trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God commanded Adam and Eve to eat from any tree in the garden except for one, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. "If you eat of it," God said, "you will surely die." This tree represented a choice between trusting God's wisdom or deciding for themselves what was good and evil. It was a test of their trust in the Creator. In Genesis 3, the story takes a darker turn. The serpent, described as more crafty than any of the wild animals, approaches Eve. The serpent questions God's command, saying, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" Eve responds, clarifying God's command, but the serpent continues to sow doubt, saying, "You will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Eve looks at the fruit of the tree. She sees that it is good for food and pleasing to the eye, and she desires the wisdom it promises. She takes the fruit and eats it. Then she gives some to Adam, and he also eats. In this moment, something fundamental changes. Adam and Eve have chosen to trust their own judgment over God's, and they experience the first effects of sin, separation from God, and from each other. Immediately after eating the fruit, Adam and Eve realize they are naked, and they feel shame for the first time. They sew fig leaves together to cover themselves, and when they hear God walking in the garden, they hide. God calls out to Adam, "Where are you?" And Adam replies, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." In this moment, we see the tragic consequences of their choice, fear, shame, and a broken relationship with their Creator. When God confronts Adam and Eve, he asks them what they have done. Adam blames Eve, and Eve blames the serpent. But the reality is clear. They have both chosen to disobey God's command. God then delivers the consequences of their actions. To the serpent he declares, "Cursed are you above all livestock and wild animals. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers." To Eve, God says that childbirth will now be painful, and to Adam that the ground is cursed because of him, and that his work will be difficult and tiring. Finally, Adam and Eve are banished from the Garden of Eden. They are no longer able to eat from the tree of life, and they must now live in a world marked by toil, pain, and death. But even in this moment of judgment, there is a hint of hope. God clothes Adam and Eve with garments made from animal skins, a sign that even though they have sinned, he still cares for them. And he hints at a future promise, that one day a descendant of Eve will crush the serpent's head, signaling that God's plan to restore humanity is already in motion. The story of Adam and Eve is more than just an account of the first humans. It's a story that reflects our own experience, the choices we make, the temptations we face, and the consequences of turning away from God. But it's also a story of hope. Even in the midst of failure, God's plan for redemption is already underway. And as we continue our journey through Genesis, We'll see how this plan unfolds in the stories of those who come after Adam and Eve.